Welcome to our video on sand and cement rendering. We're mixing the first coat of render, or what we call the scratch coat, at 5:1. That 5 comprises of 3 very sharp gritty sand, 2 very soft sand, and of course 1 cement. Plenty of water, make the mix nice. Our first coat, or scratching coat, onto this concrete wall, which is external and therefore a bit damp, is applied at 5 to 6 millimeters thick. The overall thickness, both coats, will be 15 millimeters, but unlike plastering, the thin coat is put on first and pressed firmly into the wall to make sure that every part of it is adhering to the wall. This will be scratched in a moment with a scratching comb, which you'll see. Incidentally, every tool that you see in this video can be bought by clicking on the link which is in this blue box here, and it will take you through to our rendering bundle of tools. Once the first coat's been applied, we scratch it with a scratching comb, and that gives the second coat a really good key. The first coat is allowed to dry, or at least become very firm, before we apply the second coat. And sometimes, if it has become dry, you'll need to spray the second coat down, the scratching coat down with water before applying the second coat. This slows down the absorption rate of the second coat and allows both coats to dry together to form a very strong surface. The second coat is again 5:1, but this time it's 3 soft sand and 2 sharp sand to make sure that we can close the surface up to get a lovely finish. Our webpage on DIY Doctor on rendering shows using battens to make sure we keep the render to a uniform thickness. These guys are very experienced and don't need those battens. Once our 10mm top coat is applied, in this case we're doing it in sections to show you what we do, we go over it with what's called a derby, a plasterer's derby. In this case it's a length of aluminium, it can be any straight edge. And we run over the surface, taking the bumps off the render to give us a completely flat surface. This of course opens up the surface a little bit. You'll see some close-ups in a bit, which we then close again when we trowel it up. But the derby will give us a flat surface, ensuring a uniform thickness of render across the wall. Put any surplus render back in the bucket, and we can reuse that. Here you can see the difference between the two surfaces, and the promised close-up shows that we've opened up the surface by using the derby, taking off the rough spots and flattened it all out. You will of course find little hollows once you've been over the wall with the derby, but we'll show you how to deal with those just in a moment. Fill any hollows with another coat of render applied just as you did the last coat, and then simply run the derby up the wall again to make the hollow level with the rest of the wall. You can see from the surface now that it's just flat, smooth and ready to be rubbed in with a polyurethane float, which Richard is doing now, quite a large float to make sure the wall is absolutely flat. Nice, slow, circular motions to bind the surface together to give it greater integrity and much more waterproof. James is using a smaller float in the smaller areas, the tight areas up by gables and round barge boards and fascia boards. Richard's still using the big float to get the surface absolutely flat and smooth. After floating, we go over the surface lightly with a damp sponge, gentle circular motions to make absolutely sure the surface is completely bound, with no holes or cracks that water can get into. Keep the sponge very, very clean, rinse it regularly with water, wring it out, and make sure that surface is perfect. At the end of the sponging, we then run round with a small brush all of the edges to make sure everything is clean and tidy, no surface has got render on that it shouldn't have, and we can have a completed, finished, tidy job.